Okay, so we are looking at the CELF5 and we decided to do the form for 5 to 8 because we went through the older one and it's pretty much the exact same except for there's a couple added sections to the younger form. So we're going to start with sentence comprehension, and the ceiling is 4 and repetition is allowed, and you score a 1 or a 0, and you also record what their response was. So we start by saying, I'm going to show you some pictures and ask you some questions and just answer them to the best of your ability. So I can wear this, and then you point to it, and I can eat this. So those are just some examples. Moving on, there's different age ranges, so you start 5 to 6 at a certain point, and then you start ages 7 to 8 at a different point. So we'll start with 3. So point to the boy who is sitting under the big tree. Point to the boy who is sitting under the big tree is eating a banana. Okay, so it would be this one. So you would circle the response, and then if they got it right, you'd give them a 1. So moving on to linguistic concepts. So here are some pictures. I will point to the flower. Now you point to the picture that I name. Point to the house, point to the ball, point to the apple, point to the sun, point to the flower. So you score a 1 or a 0, and 4 is the ceiling. So we'll just do an example. So I would say point to the suns that are together. So they'd want to point to these two. And then if they did that, you'd give them a 1. So it's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay. Then we're looking at word structure. Do you want to control the book?
Yes.
So in the manual, it gives a little example of what you could say because the form is pretty bad at giving like verbal instructions to the child. So we looked in the manual and it gave a good demonstration of what you can say. So you could say, I'm going to show you some pictures and say some things about them. I want you to help me by finishing some of the things I say. I'll do the first one. Listen, here's a boy, and here is and then you'd want the client to say girl. And then moving on, you would say, here is a cup, or
the boy.
Oh, this boy is standing, and this boy is, and then you'd want the child to say sitting. And then mom said, these shoes are mine on the left, and then these shoes are blank, and then you'd want the child to say yours. So just going through, scoring on 1 or 0, correct or incorrect, like the last one. And then there is no ceiling for this, for the word structure assessment. And then moving on to the word classes, same thing. We looked in the manual for like a little description on what to say again. And did you find it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to read some words. 2 of the words go together. Listen to the words fish, milk, fin, spider. Fish and fin are the 2 words that go together. And then just moving on, let's do some more. Remember 2 of these words go together and they are related. Which picture are you on?
I don't know. 2, but that's okay. Go to
So
11. Go to 11.
Oh, okay. Key, razor, hammer, nail. So you'd want the child to pick the hammer and nail, the 2 items that go together. And then again, you're just scoring on 1 or 0. And then the ceiling is 4. So after they get 4 zeros, you would stop doing the word class section.
So moving on to following directions. I just grab a new booklet here. And then, as we said, there was not good description of the directions, but it says for the demo, here's some pictures. I will point to the circle. Now you point to the pictures that I name. point to the triangle, point to the circle, or point to the X, point to the circle, point to the square. So on here, you're scoring at a 1 or a 0, and there is a ceiling of 4. So I'll just do an example, number 4. So point to the big X and then point to the little triangle. So the big X and the little triangle. So you would get a 1.
Okay, and then the next section is formulated sentences, which you have to go back to the other book for. So it's kind of messy that you have to go back and forth between these booklets. So basically for this one, you're just writing the client's response to creating a sentence, and then in the manual it says like you could go back later to score and kind of see good examples and bad examples of the sentences that they might use. And then it scored 2, 1, or 0, so like a complete sentence, kind of good, kind of not complete sentence, and then 0 would be like they totally missed it. So here is a picture of people in the library. I will use the book in a sentence. I will use the word book in a sentence and talk about book. The girl is reading a book. Or I could also say a book is on the table. And then moving on, you would just say, here's another picture. Now you make a sentence about this picture using the word first. Or she, airplane. So it just gives the word on this manual, and then you just ask them to create a sentence with the picture and then the word that is provided.
So now we're at recalling sentences. So we simply just tell them a sentence. So my sister is in the 6th grade, and then they are to repeat the sentence back. And there's some editing symbols because you can like document if they had an omission, a repetition, addition, transposition, or a substitution, and then you just kind of mark on the sentence. So you mark it as a 3, 2, 1, or 0. So a 3 would be 0 errors, and a 2 would be 1 error, and a 1 would be 2 to 3 errors, and then 4 plus errors is a 0. So you have different age ranges that you start, and then 4 errors in a row is the ceiling. So you would just ask them, can you repeat the sentence after me? Was the van followed by the ambulance? And then they would simply repeat it. And that is all for that one.
And then the next section is understanding spoken paragraphs. So basically you read a short paragraph, and then there's questions that follow the paragraph. To save time, I'm not going to read it, but the first is like a surprise birthday party. So you just read the paragraph, and then you say, why was Andy excited? And then write the child's response to why they were excited. And then the correct response is because the surprise would arrive early. And then just going from that, and then the questions get a little harder. And then there's quite a few different little stories here, maybe like 8 or 9 that you'd go through, and then you just score 1 or 0 if the response is correct or incorrect.
So then the last portion of this test is pragmatics profile. So it's just going through and kind of observing as well as watching, I guess. So just some examples, just like rituals or conversation skills. So did they greet you? The next section would be like asking and giving directions, and then it's scored from a 1 to 4. So 1 would be never or almost never, 2 sometimes, 3 often, and 4 always or almost always. And then there's a pragmatic activities checklist. So there's like nonverbals, verbals, stuff like that, just to be observing during your assessment that you can just go through and mark just with the check mark and box.
Yep.
So yeah, that is the CELF5.